All right. There we go. So, guys, it's podcast time. We are going to get going very quickly because unfortunately I am a little bit more rushed today, but we're going to get going very quickly because I still have an important message I want to bring to all of you. And today we are talking about filling the hole in your game or plugging the hole in your game. And so we're actually going to get going right away. And we're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the number one show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we are talking about plugging the hole in your game. And the reason that we're talking about this, it was actually a conversation I was having this morning that I wanted to, bring to all of you guys as well with a guy at my gym. Another coach, somebody talking about building up their business. And we were talking about, like as a business grows, like the different areas that you might struggle with, the different things that, it's like as you bring more clients in, something might break here. And when something breaks here, you need to plug the hole. And then when you plug the hole over here, then another hole is going to pop up somewhere else and you got to plug the hole. And it's just, you continue to improve, but you're always going to have something new pop up. You're always going to have another problem pop up. You're always going to have another struggle or another issue pop up. And as I was driving home today, I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about that in terms of athletes. And as I was thinking about it, I realized how easily transferable that same analogy of, plugging the hole like that is when it comes to building a career as an athlete. And it brought me back to another conversation I was having a few weeks ago with an athlete out there that basically messaged me and said that what I always try to do apparently is make my work seem more important than the skills training. And I'm going to say it right now. Strength and conditioning is not more important than your skills training. It's not. But it does need to be considered as important as your skills training. And the reason it needs to be considered as important as your skills training is this. If you have the greatest skill set in the world, but you gas out very quickly and you're not strong, so your opponent can grab you and throw you around, you're not going to do very well, right? That great skill set that you've got is definitely going to win you some fights, don't get me wrong. But if you gas out very quickly, you're not very strong, and your body's always in bad shape, and you're always kind of getting hurt because you're not sturdy or stable, that's going to lead to a lot of problems, and that's probably going to lead to a lot of losses. And how do we fix that? Proper strength and conditioning. So no, it is not more important. You should not neglect your skills training so that you can do more strength and conditioning work. But you also shouldn't neglect your strength and conditioning work. So this brought me to the analogy again of, filling the hole in your game, or as we were talking about this morning, filling the hole in the business. And so when it comes to your skill set, when it comes to your game, the way we want to think about it is just that, plugging the hole. So let's say you've got incredible striking skills. If you're standing with someone, you're beating them every single time. Like you're at that level. Everything in that realm feels great. Well, then what's the weakness? How can someone beat you? Well, if that's your grappling, then the hole in your game right now might be the grappling. So now when you're building out your weekly training schedule, you should probably focus more time in that area that you're not as proficient in or you're not as good at, right? And by focusing more time in that area that you need more work in, that like focusing more time on filling that hole, plugging that hole, you're going to see improvements to your game. And in turn, you're going to round that out. Now, does that mean that you're going to be the perfect athlete and there's going to be no way to beat you? No. You're going to continue to improve, but then a weakness is going to start to present itself, right? So that next weakness might be your strength and conditioning work. You might have good skills in every area, but you might run out of steam by the end of the second round. And then when you're getting into the third round, if your fight gets there, you're not nearly as good in the third round as you were in the first round. And if that's the case for you, you've got the next hole in your game you need to fill. And in that case, instead of spending extra time on the skills, more time on the skills, the right move for you is to take some of that time and focus on just building your conditioning. making sure that when the third round comes around, you have just as much energy as you do in the first and second, right? So when someone says that I make my work sound more important, that's never the goal. But there are some cases where it should be your primary focus, right? Never saying that you should discount your skills training or you shouldn't be focusing on improving your skills. But if your skill for skill is better than all of the people that you're competing against, you feel like, skill for skill, I've got all of these guys, no problem. Well, then what would be the area of weakness that they can exploit to beat you? It could be your pace. It could be your strength. It could be your power. You might have great skill set, but if you don't have any power on your punches and you're not getting that respect from your opponent that might be able to walk through it, grab you, and then, have their way, do what they want to do. So you've always got to be thinking about what that next area is, what that next problem is, what that next hole that you need to plug is. And sometimes it's going to be as simple as, hey, my skills are on point. Now, does that mean you shouldn't keep working on improving your skills? Of course not. You should always be trying to improve your skills. But instead of making the number one focus, how do I improve the skills more, improve the skills more, improve the skills more? If those are always really good, keep practicing, keep improving, but spend more time, spend more money, spend more energy on the conditioning side, making sure that you're filling that hole. You're stopping that from being a weakness in your game. Right? So the big takeaway I want you guys to think about as we wrap this up, because it is a quicker one today, the big takeaway as I want you guys to think about is that there is always going to be a hole in the game. Now, those holes get smaller as you start climbing up the ranks and, becoming more high level, improving your skills more. World champion athletes aren't going to have the same gaping holes in their game as a rule as people who are, in their first couple of fights on the regional scene, because that's why they're world champions. But even at that world championship level, they shouldn't be, and most of the time aren't, sitting there being like, well, my game's perfect, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. Like, they're always searching for, what is that next thing? What is my biggest weakness? If someone was going to beat me, how are they going to do it? And because they're thinking like that, and they're working on filling that hole, they're working on making that improvement, they're working on making that change, there's less and less people out there that have the ability to beat them. Because every time somebody's like, oh, that's the weakness that I'm going to exploit, they fix that weakness, right? So what I really want you guys to think about as we wrap this up is, what is the gaping hole in the game right now? What is the big problem? If somebody is going to beat you, how are they going to do it? Because once you figure that out and you can spend more concentrated time in that area, now you're going to be able to make the improvements you need in that area. You're going to be able to see the improvements you want in that area of your game. And in turn, you're going to be able to make the changes to improve and stop that from being a weakness moving forward in your game. So guys, that is it. That is all. I appreciate you all for taking the time. I appreciate you all for tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your day. If you took something away from that, if you learned something, which I hope you did, shoot me a message across my social media platforms. All the options on how to do that will be in the show notes below. As always, I appreciate you all for tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next episode.